Welcome everyone. My name is Darby Rollins, founder of Gen AI University, and in today's call and live stream, we are going to be covering the topic of watching AI replace me. Now, throughout the time that we are streaming live today, I will be covering a number of topics, some taken from the crowd of those joining us live here today, and some taken from submissions for recipe and workflows to be created from our community over the past few months. Now, throughout this workshop, you're going to see me working heavily and extensively inside of a few different AI tools where I'll be demonstrating different workflows and processes and prompts and ways that I'm using all of these tools together in combination with a process I call auto scripting, which is essentially a way to help with streamlining and automating workflows by leveraging the power of artificial intelligence. So throughout this call, again, we are going to be live, and I'd love to chat with every one of you guys here that is tuning in live. And if you're just here for the show to watch along, then that is fine as well. Again, my name is Darby Rollins, founder of Gen AI University, and make sure you're subscribed to us here on YouTube so that you can catch more of our trainings, our demonstrations, and our workflows as we publish and produce more videos for our YouTube channel. And if you're looking to go the next level and join a full community with more advanced resources from beginner to advanced on helping you integrate and implement AI into your business, go on over to genaiuniversity.com and check out our options for membership. You can also subscribe to our newsletter for free so you get updates on different events and deals and things of that nature. So before I kick things off today, I want to make sure that I can see everybody here in the chat. If you're out there joining with us live, say hi. I see there's a handful of y'all here with us right now. Great to see you guys here live. And I'm curious, as you guys are watching these demonstrations, what workflows are you spending the most time on inside of your business? Where are you looking for ways to use AI and apply it in your business? And where are you looking for maybe just some ideas or support, or you'd like to see if it's even possible with AI? Please do let me know. Great to see you in the crowd, Chuck and Kevin. Great to see everyone else here with us live today. And yeah, let me know where you guys are at right now in your own AI journey along the way. And if you're watching the recording, you go ahead and drop a comment. Love to see where everybody is at in this process. And as we kick things off here, I want to emphasize there's a few tools that I'm going to be using heavily today. Probably the most is going to be a combination of Claude AI from Anthropic and ChatGPT from OpenAI. If we demonstrate things like creating slideshows and presentations, I use a tool called Gamma, which is really great for helping create presentations in a matter of minutes after you've got the content for your presentation. And we'll jump into a few other tools that we've created ourselves here at Gen AI University to help us with the prompt engineering process. Now, I'll go first in saying that the number one thing that I'm looking to replace myself in terms of using AI is creating constant as throughout the journey of as we started with Jasper as their first customer, then Conversion AI to creating the AI author as our platform for building our community that is now Gen AI University. Is it all really stems back down to workflows and recipes and taking essentially frameworks that either thought leaders or experts on a subject or anyone that has a process that they've gone through and either conceptualized and refined on their own and have taught in the form of a book or a course or something along those lines is it can be hard to translate that idea into something that's impactful. Hence the theme of where we're at right now at Gen AI University of turning your ideas into impact with AI workflows. How do you take the idea of a book that can have a lot of powerful concepts and frameworks within it to your readers actually getting a result from those books, especially when I think the statistics are less than 10% of readers even get past the first chapter in a book? As an author or an expert or a thought leader, that is kind of a crummy statistic because you put all the time and energy into creating this book, this piece of intellectual property that has your frameworks that you spent so much time creating and refining and putting together, only to have people still trip up and maybe fall flat when it comes to putting that into implementation. So one of the things in recent case study that we're seeing a lot of success on inside of the book implementation process is one off of Alex Hormozi's $100 Million Leads book. Alex came up with this book, launched it a month or so ago, and the book has seen a lot of success and is helping a lot of people implement the next stage of the marketing and sales process, building off of his book, $100 Million Offers. Now, I don't know how many of you out there, maybe you have the book yourself sitting on your shelf, $100 Million Offers and or $100 Million Leads. But the question remains is, have you put this book into action? And how long does it take you to put these books into action? How long has it taken you to create your framework for your own $100 Million Offer, for coming up with each element of what Alex teaches inside of that book? And then how are you applying that within the construct of $100 Million Leads? Again, example, if you've done this, if you've gone through these books, then you know that it takes time to not only learn and understand these frameworks, but then to put them into practice. And so one of the very first workflows that we created here at Gen AI University was built off the $100 Million Offers book. And now we see that workflow and the next stage of that particular series of workflows building off of $100 Million Leads, where we're helping people quite literally go through this entire process and crafting these offers and their entire leads campaigns very, very quickly. So the first thing I'm going to show you before we dive into the frameworks and demonstrations is how those particular workflows work. And the reason I am focusing throughout the remainder of this live stream on different workflows within our own business and taking suggestions from the crowd on different ways that we can save time, free up our bandwidth, and like really give us back a lot of the energy and the resources and the time that we can be spending on these processes that we can then allocate to other areas of our lives. So first, what I'm going to do is head on over to our blog, and I'm going to show you in action these workflows and how powerful they can be. So go ahead and share my screen. So you guys should all be able to see my screen here and have a little bit help in the moderation of these chats. So just going to make sure that my screen can get seen at all times. But if you're on our blog and you go to the blog on genaiuniversity.com/blog, you can go to one of our later posts as of right now, where we can use ChatGPT combined with that $100 Million Offers and that $100 Million Leads workflow. Now I've put these together in the freest of forms. You guys can't see my screen right now, so I'm going to stop sharing. That's frustrating. Give me a second. Second. Make sure we get past these little hiccups before we get going. Thanks for letting me know, Kevin. That is annoying. Give me a second. Can you guys see my screen now? Just give me a thumbs up or something in the chat to make sure you guys can. Should be able to see my screen here. All right, cool. We're good to go. All right, so you go on over to genaiuniversity.com/blog, and one of our recent posts is this ChatGPT plus $100 million offers plus $100 million leads workflow. Now, this took time to put together, and as I imagine, if you have a workflow or a process that you are doing on a day-to-day instance inside of your business, or every week or every month, then you've got a good idea of some sort of workflow in your business that if you could just save a few hours or maybe a lot of hours in that, it might be worth spending the time to put one of these workflows together for you. And so here, I'm going to highlight my cursor so you guys can follow along. Just to show you, as we kick this live stream off, how this process works on one instance, and then we'll go about reverse engineering how to create these type of workflows for pretty much anything that you're doing in your business. So as you can see, I've got an example content brief here from a party game that is one of my projects called SideHustle. And I filled out a context brief, which is just all the information you need to give the AI so that it's spitting out facts about your business. And it's not just making stuff up and hallucinating, as people say. And so this is a 2-section workflow. One is the $100 million offer workflow. Creating that Grand Slam offer, I recommend reading Alex's book, $100 million offers, before you go into it. Then here we go. It's got these prompts, and I call these command stacks, but you can call them prompt stacks. You can call them a whole lot of stuff. Ultimately, what this means is a different series of prompts or instructions that we're giving the AI to do in building off all of the context that we've given it up here. And so for this example, we can take this first section of section 1 before moving on to section 2, which is the $100 million leads workflow. We can take this section, and then I have on my another tab my ChatGPT from OpenAI open. Here, I would simply, of course, log in. Just give me a second. At least we know how to share screens now. So let me just get logged in. I had to reset my cache before we hopped on. All right. We are all set to go. Again, window. All right, so now resharing. ChatGPT, you can use 3.5. It's pretty fast, and it does a lot of great things. I'd recommend, if you're exploring stuff with ChatGPT at all, to go ahead and upgrade to GPT-4. You get access to things like the different features that they're rolling out, plugins, DALL-E 3, which I haven't even had time to work with yet. But you'd simply go into ChatGPT, paste that prompt/command stack. And then, again, for demonstration purposes, I've already created this content brief. And so you would want to simply highlight context all the way down, and you could highlight all the way up here, but your business name, offer, avatar, niche, pain points, resources. Basically, everything here is the baseline of what you'd want ChatGPT to understand about your product and your business. So if you've got an offer, maybe you're an agency, or maybe you have a bunch of e-commerce products. This is just one product. You paste that up here and then simply copy and paste and click execute. Now, what this is doing is using ChatGPT to come up with each one of the sections from the $100 million offers book. And so it's coming up with target prospects. Do they have buying power? Are they easy to reach? And so it's kind of giving us all of these different parts of that Alex covers in the book, $100 million offers. And it's helping us accelerate the brainstorming aspect of this workflow. And so as any business has some sort of offer that they are bringing to the market, it's important that you have a well-defined offer. And an offer is something that arguably is one of, if not the most important thing you could be working on as a business owner and improving on to make it an even more irresistible offer. And so running just this particular workflow gives us all 11 parts that Alex teaches in that book. So you can see Laughter Lounge, Entrepreneurial Edge for like magic headlines. You see the guarantees that we could offer as part of crafting this offer. You see different ways to enhance the offer with these bonuses. And so maybe there is a way that we could add in an enticing bit to this offer by adding in additional strategy cards or a humor-centric challenge or something else that we could include as part of this particular offer. And so as we're demonstrating this, be thinking on your end what ways can you apply this particular workflow into your business and or your clients' businesses to bring more value and improve your offer that will ultimately lead to more sales, better efforts on your marketing, and things of that nature. And so, as you can see, as you go through each one of these parts, it is very specifically breaking down each section of that book. And that's what I think is a big time saver in this regard, because without a recipe or a workflow like this, it could be taking me hours to come up and research and refine each section of this. And the great thing about AI is it's not going to get mad if I like this workflow, or if I want to copy and save this for future reference and simply click regenerate to run it again. And so as we're testing and refining our workflows, it's important to understand that, and just keeping in mind that AI is fantastic for brainstorming and ideation and accelerating these workflows. But ultimately, you want to start with the end in mind and have a clear line from where do you want AI to be involved with the start to where is the desired output. And then once you have that clearly defined, as pretty much like any book with a framework that you're following is already done, then you can reverse engineer that and break it down into easy to implement pieces of the puzzle there. So I want to stop right there as we finish up this second generation of this example here as we kick off the stream, and check in and see if you guys have any questions about this workflow or kind of how we got here in the first place. Ultimately, what I'm going to be doing throughout this process is breaking down how to set up these types of workflows that can be replicated for almost any process. This one was done by pretty much sitting down for an entire weekend with Alex Hormozi's $100 Million Offers book and writing out prompts and testing prompts within Jasper. This was created initially before ChatGPT came to the market. And it was spent just a lot of time tweaking and figuring out what prompts got the best outputs from AI. Now I'm going to show you some hacks and some ways to accelerate your prompt engineering by using AI. But before we move on to the second part of this workflow, any questions or comments or thoughts from anybody out here in the crowd watching us while I take a sip of my spiced apple Waterloo? Not sponsored, but Waterloo. I'm open to sponsoring. I think Waterloo is based out of Austin as well. Let's move on to part two, because once we've refined and nailed one part of these workflows, the next question then becomes, okay, what's next? Now, what's next is apparently making my screen a little bit larger. Thank you, Paul. Let me see before I move on if I can't make this a little bit larger so you guys can read a little bit more clearly. Shift this in. All right. How does this look? Is this a little bit easier to read on your guys' end on the other side? Or we're getting some confirmation on that front. Julie, great question. I think there's a plugin to GPT-4 that will read a whole book. Would it be possible to plug in the book with that app and have chat take a run at the prompts to replicate the workflow in the book? Yes, it would be. I haven't played with that plugin necessarily myself inside of ChatGPT, but I have been experimenting with how Claude can handle intaking entire books. And that was a condensed version of $100 million leads, but that was essentially how we worked on through making that recipe. So if you have an idea, Julie, on what that plugin is, then let me know. And let me see if I can't improve my streaming. You guys a more crystal clear vision of what we're doing here. But let me know if that plugin has a name, because I would like to check it out and see if that works. Apparently it won't let me upgrade my definition while live streaming. So may have to deal with the quality for right now, but I will do my best to be working through what we're working with and make better moves the next time. So once you've ran an example like this for one part of a workflow, what we've done by running this recipe and by providing this level of context above is essentially priming ChatGPT or any AI language model with additional context to help it stay a little bit more in line and on track with where we ultimately want it to go. So assume this is the $100 million offer that we would want to build from. You can move back in to the next section, which is the $100 million lead section, and highlight this top to bottom. And essentially run the next phase of this workflow to create a more robust marketing plan to go out and get said leads. So we see here, we're starting with the $100 million leads workflow, and it's starting from the top down for creating ideas for additional lead magnets that we could include with this offer. It's creating personalized outreach messages that we could use to open up conversation. And if you read through the $100 million leads book, this is pulling in a lot of the key frameworks and things that Alex teaches that are good to include and incorporate in getting this stuff done, which is opening up the conversation and growing and scaling your lead generation campaigns to different levels of where you're at inside of the process. So whether you're starting out and you only have warm leads to whether you're scaling up and you're doing paid ads, this is going to vary depending on what your business is and otherwise. So without getting too much into the weeds, this particular workflow and this series of workflows that we just demonstrated would be utilized in line with the books, $100 million offers and $100 million leads. And all that taken into account, what this means for us as entrepreneurs, business owners, thought leaders, authors, anyone that has processes or intellectual property and frameworks and things that they have developed that get an end result. In a lot of cases, those can be reverse engineered, and leveraging AI help an end user. And we see we stopped here. And so I'm going to click generate to continue the process going in ChatGPT. But you've probably already got these workflows either in your head or in a book or in a course somewhere. And so based on the last suggestion, which is exactly where my head goes to, how can I replace myself in doing this? Because we get a lot of workflow and recipe requests inside of our community. And ChatGPT just timed out on us a little bit. It happens, right? Okay, we just rerun the generation. If I were to replace myself to create an AI workflow that could not end all workflows, but could save me and my team a boatload of time, it would be creating a workflow / recipe that could essentially take any given book or framework or course or concept that has a structure and has outcomes that might take a lot of different steps to accomplish. And how can we accelerate the process of creating something that could make any of those more implementable within your business? So that's where we're going to start after we dig into here. And while we've been demonstrating ChatGPT, with this case, I know there's a few the plugins being referred to. Let me know, Julie, if you've got an idea of what plugin that was. One of the issues I have seen right now, and again, AI moves so fast, by the time you're watching this as a replay, there could be something that completely does exactly what we want it to do, and it just hasn't existed yet, or we haven't found it. But in a lot of cases I've seen with things like Antonio, as you're saying, like AI PDF, chat with PDF, ask your PDF. I've heard of these type of PDFs before, or PDF readers where chat can go and scan the PDF and then reference it for output. But I've heard those having limitations to the character amounts. And one tool that I found is extremely effective for working around this issue that ChatGPT runs into is Claude from Anthropic. And Claude is actually my generative AI chat interface of choice, because on their pro plan, and if you have access to their API, and there's a few ways that you can work around with other platforms like Poe.com, and I believe Perplexity is another one that allows you to tap into Claude's 100,000 character token interface, which is somewhere between 55 and 75,000 words of context that it can read, which is mostly books. And you might have books that are longer than that, but a lot of books will be under that 75,000 word context window, which means with the right prompt and the right way to engineer the right questions within ChatGPT. I'm going to pull off my screen here because this is just how you would run that second half of the demo. And of course, you'd want to go and put these all into action in the next phase, which will be the next iteration as we're building out that workflow to save more time. Is coming back down to replacing myself. Is what I do that's most impactful for our community right now is creating these workflows and these kind of mega recipes and prompts that help, any number of these different processes get accelerated. So now we need to choose a book or a framework or something along those lines that we want to reverse engineer. Ideally, somebody in this group right now in the chat has a book that they wrote, and they would love to turn that book into a workflow, and an AI-powered workflow that helps your end reader get a result from going and reading and using your book and then putting in things and concepts that you're teaching in that book into action. So before we move any further, I'm going to pause and ask the crowd, is anyone here an author or a course creator, someone that has a framework that they would love AI to love AI to do it? And Charles, like we are on the same wavelength when it comes to this, is just how do we reverse engineer these books to make implementing what's inside of those books that much faster? So I don't know if you've got any books on hand that would be great to build from. But while we work into the next phase of what we're going to be covering here, which is we're 30 minutes in, the next stage is going to be starting to develop the workflow that will effectively help with automating and streamlining any sort of framework that any expert, thought leader, author has that can help people get faster results and real world results from what they are teaching inside of their books. So you got a question here from Jason. Which is easier, taking frameworks to create a book or take a book and turning it into frameworks? I think that depends, because if you are starting from wanting to create, let's say, a book, and you don't have a framework that you're going to be following, then it might just take you a lot longer to figure out the end result of what you're going to want to say. And so if you have a framework to create a book and you could engineer all the prompts to help you with creating that, that could accelerate the actual creation of that book process very, very fast. And you guys may have seen a few different tools out there over the past few months that are doing this right now, which they are helping you take an initial idea and then coming up with entire drafts of a book and an outline and content that is in line with what you're putting on an input to create that first draft of a book. Very powerful, and saving obviously a lot of time in getting that idea into a first draft. Obviously, with AI generating everything, that is one step of the process. But if that can get 80% of your first draft done in a matter of minutes, pretty powerful. Take a book and then turning a book into a framework. That I think a lot of this will depend on what you have. Like a lot of the frameworks and things of that nature that are being taught in these books may not have specific workflows built around them. And so if creating that framework and that process takes a lot more time, then we need to start from there. But once that's already been created, and if you are, let's say, an author that teaches on a specific subject and has this framework that you've already spent the time creating, then the next step would be, how do we extract that framework and turning it into something implementable? See, books that come to mind are things like Atomic Habits, to build daily routines. Also interested in business related, like Gerber's E-Myth. Speaking of E-Myth, might be a book that we can start with as demonstration for how to go about this process. See, Story Brand from Donald Miller. That's actually been another one inside of our community that has been requested as well. That one, the E-Myth. We're working on Ultimate Sales Machine right now from Chet Holmes. Some workflows within that book that are pretty powerful that we're playing around with. So let me see if I can pull up something that we could start to build on. Because my goal with this is to create a recipe that will essentially help with accelerating the process of creating these workflows so that we can apply them to any of these processes. Let me see. Start with E-Myth. Just give me a second here while I pull it up. Someone shared the manuscript of this with me the other day inside of our community for something that we could work as a case study. See, okay, we're almost there. Here we go. So now, the first way that I approach this entire workflow automation process to create these particular types of workflows, through something I called auto scripting, which is the prompt engineering of things, which if you see what AI is giving it instructions to then chaining those instructions together to create different commands that stack on top of each other. And then once you've created all of those different series of instructions, then we want to automate that. but we have to basically reverse engineer things from the end to the beginning and figure out all the things on the middle that are going to make up said process. So I'm going to go here and start with sharing my screen. We're jumping right into Claude. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Claude is a really powerful AI platform that gives me the ability to say all sorts of things. And I need to log in again. So give me a second while I log in. And then I'll share my screen and we'll be on our way. And so what I'm going to dive into here, and please do feel free to ask questions as we're rolling through this, is using a mix of prompts and instructions that I'm going to either verbally say or copy and paste or simply just type out that are going to help me with extracting the frameworks from the E-Myth, which is a very popular book. Yeah, Michael Gerber. Start a new chat. And we are in Claude by Anthropic. So first thing I'm going to do, I have a book. And I have either a really in-depth outline of everything that's covered inside of the book or the manuscript entirely. You can attach this to Claude or take certain sections of the book if the book is too big, which it appears to be right here. See another example that we might dive into. Principles of the book Influence seem like an interesting one to build workflows from. One idea is 5 different ways to create reciprocity from a specific event towards a persona. That would be a good one as well. So let me just take, like, say, one chapter from this book, the E-Myth. So I'm going to take chapter 1. And paste chapter 1 inside of Claude. Tell it to analyze this content first and foremost. So basically, starting out here and how I would approach any sort of workflow is to first give the context into Claude and have it start analyzing it. So we say the E-Myth refers to the myth of the entrepreneur, start small business or skilled technicians, not true entrepreneurs. And so it's going about basically what we're talking about inside of this particular chapter. So now that I've got that for chapter 1, I'm asking another question. What I want to do is start to give these prompts to Claude to get it in the frame of mind to telling me not to do this because it's apparently not the right thing to do. Observations, centered E-Myth. Start with asking if there's anything like ways that I can pull out and understand different frameworks inside of this book. Entrepreneurial Sheezer, let me see, business, fatal assumption. Claude is asking as we're giving it this prompts and context is to expand on any of these frameworks or connect them to specific business contexts. The key is tailoring these models to the unique needs and the goals of your business. I'm just going to simply say yes, please do. These models to your own business context and goals, but they provide the use of lenses in diagnosing issues, focusing on the right solutions to grow yourself as an entrepreneurial leader. So, if this is the context of chapter 1, so as I'm asking these questions and going down the thread with Claude, I want to begin to see where I can open things up in terms of the different frameworks that could be repeatable and apply to, let's say, any business if we were to give it a different series of prompts or different layers of context. So we have the one, assess your entrepreneurial seizure, explore your origin stories and initial motivations. Were you driven by technical, disconnect, or proactive vision? Examine your fatal assumptions, technical versus business skills. Map your emotional trajectory. Audit your technical versus entrepreneur capacities. Shift from working in to working on. Time test your entrepreneurial mindset. Revisit your e-myth assumptions regularly. So often what I'll find is as we're moving down this path and just kind of going through the conversational aspect of asking to kind of focus in on these different frameworks and things that we can pinpoint and then apply to different situations and businesses, is we can kind of keep going further and further. And so I'll just take these prompts that I'm getting from Claude and move on to that next step. And I see, Chuck, it's been a while since I've read this book, and I probably need to go back and read it again. And usually with any one of these numbers, we'll be spending more time going through and reading through the books prior, anyways, to make sure that the understanding is there. So we're just using this as an example. Activities, close the gap. Do this. Additions. Part 1, execute, give up. So now, for each section of this, I would want to start to begin to have AI help me with the prompting of certain things. And so what I'm going to start to do is turn on my voice dictation and ask it to help with the prompting of what it just helped me come up with for part 1. So I'm going to say test, test, test. Thank you. Now assume the role of a master prompt engineer who understands how to engineer prompts that can be leveraged and applied for best outcomes utilizing large language models. I need you to reference the last output and each section, starting with assess your entrepreneurial seizure, is to create a series of prompts that can expand off a given set of variables and inputs by the user to help with coming up with a more robust, complete output that helps achieve the primary goal of what the contents of this book are helping us accomplish. After section 1, I want you to move on to section 2, examine your fatal assumptions and provide the same thing, along with section 3, section 4, and section 5, and section 6, and section 7. Building on top of each prompt so that they are sequentially improving on each other, and providing the tactical prompts to execute ideal outputs based on the inputs. Once you create all of those prompts, I then want you to identify all of the core variables that would be required by the business owner or entrepreneur who is filling out this content brief to ideally provide all needed information up front so that the AI can assist with the prompting for desired outputs. So I've used something similar to this in the past, but I'm not sure exactly how this particular prompt will work. I want to see, assess your entrepreneurial seizure, business name, year founded, initial motivations, prompt, please provide detailed analysis, fatal assumption, founder's technical skills, initial business management skills. So as we can see here, it's taking in, based on what I told it, to create the variables that are needed and then create the prompt that's going to essentially help us build on top of those variables. Going down to section 7, we start back up at the top. We saw here, assess your entrepreneur seizure, variables needed, business, year founded, initial motivations, providing the business analysis. Section 2, additional variables needed. And so these would all be things that I, as someone coming in, putting the inputs in to Claude, would then want to focus my time and energy on so that the prompt can then be most direct based on said inputs. Map your emotional trajectory, variable needed, growth milestones, major setbacks, identify that. Good question from Julie. Here, when you're asking it to build the prompts, have you ever asked the AI to provide what the optimum length for the input should be or how detailed they should be? I don't think I have. That'd be an interesting thing to test and see how that improves. My goal with the instruction in this prompt is to have it create the prompt to best be utilized within large language models, but it doesn't mean that each one of these prompts is going to be perfect just the way it is. And so as I'm building out any sort of workflow, it doesn't necessarily, the first output isn't always necessarily going to be the best one. And so I have a document on another screen right now where I will simply copy and paste some of these outputs to have on hand in case some were actually really good. And I want to reference back to them at any given time. I do find the more concise you can get with a lot of this context, the better, at least to start. But again, every recipe or workflow that we're creating can maybe have different outputs and results based on how structured the content brief coming in is. So I'm going to do another run of this and see where this goes again. So this one, it's not including the variables inside of each round. But it is giving more questions. 3 business expertise here is the biggest difference. Dedicating time, shifting, working. So this round, what it might do after that, the section 7 is coming up now with the key variables. So we see here, key variables for entrepreneurs should provide business, industry, and type, current stage of business, background of the technical capacities, goals for the business, current pains and challenge points, resources available. I'm going to copy this. Actually, before I do that, let me see one more time. Frameworks. We'll see if we can go down this rabbit hole a little bit. Age of business, right here, prompts for organizational change. So now I'm going to take the first output I got, the suggestions and latest output above, and combine them with the following output to create an optimized outputs and the variables from the user. So I'm basically asking it here to take the output from the first one and then the suggestions above. And what it's doing here, assess your entrepreneur seizure inputs, prompt, please provide a detailed analysis. So it's taking some of that first one, additional program motivations. Here. Section 2, examine the fatal assumptions. So it's moving on down and it's providing them in all of those different variables. So the key is customizing. Let me know. Modify. I'm going to say continue for section 3 to 7. So it can continue on and expand on the rest of the different sections in this workflow. So based on how it's going right now, it should finish out all the way through section 7. So what I'm going to do at this point, now that I have the prompts and I have the variables and the general questions, I'm going to ask it to engineer a set of variables and prompts for the user to input that would then be utilized to execute this section, all 7 of these sections. Test, test, test. Can you reference all of the key variables above and the descriptors and questions that will help extract the information from the end user to organize those in a format like so that the inputs can be clearly defined and inputted. And then from there, we will move on to cleaning up the rest of the sections with the prompts to create a test run for this workflow. So I started doing this once I have all of the variables and the context that I would need. To just help with the organization of it. And I used to just type all these out manually, but when you have an AI like this as your assistant, it can help with all sorts of things. And it can help with coming up with the different variables that you need to input and organizing them very clearly. Chuck makes a good point here. Phrases such as this we use repeatedly, I store in my phrase expander or my Stream Deck. That's a great insight. I haven't used phrase expander, but I do use Stream Deck and I'm sure phrase expander as well. Great for just tapping into these, saving a lot of time as you are building out these different workflows. You can get pretty creative with how you utilize something like a Stream Deck. Cool. So now that we're at this stage, what I would want to do is start to test out this recipe specifically and to kind of bring this back to how is this replacing me in the first place is all of the questions that I'm asking it here to break down a framework like this and turn it into its own workflow are things that, yes, I need to do manually at first, but if I can go back through and reverse engineer how I got these questions out, I could effectively create a workflow that will require either me to save a lot of time in doing this manually every single time myself, or to a point where I could simply train somebody to go through this process and do it without me by simply copying and pasting some of these prompts in it together. I'm going to test this out real quick. Chuck says build tools to build tools. Exactly. And like I said, like we're working at a high level right now, but ultimately getting through this process and refining it is what is going to save tons of time down the road. Less I don't go through the process after we're done with this one section of how to basically recreate what I just did so that it takes me 1/10 of the time the next time. Say a startup creative agency. So I'm just going to have Claude come up with a mock business to fill these things in. And so again, just for testing purposes, fill all these things out. Year founded, desire more creative freedom, inspired by agency model, age of business 3 years. And so here's a sample prompt for section 1. Please provide a detailed analysis of creative agency's origins, primary focus there. So before I move on, what I want to do now is I'm going to start a second tab of Claude just because I'm going to be utilizing this, this example here. Start a new chat. This is going to be let's see, computer's being slow, of course. All right, just trying to make sure I can save this stuff because I am going to want to replicate it and make sure I have it on hand. So I'm going to take the business name. Copy this over here. Right. I'm saving that into a separate document, and I'm going to save this into a separate document because if I'm going to just be testing this, which after we've got the initial framework built out, we need to test it. I'm going to open up my separate Claude document. Say content brief equals this. So this is my content brief. Time allocation, 70% in, that on. And now the next thing I'm going to do is come back up to section 1, section 2. And I'm copying all of these into a document as well because the reason we want to format it like this, and for any workflow that you're using to like not have to do this work every single time, is setting up these variables so you only have to do the work once whenever you or anybody that's running this AI machine workflow. They don't have to keep doing it again and again and again and going back and manually filling out every single bit of information in here in context. So now I'm going to copy all of those. I'm going to give it my first command, which is going to be, I'm just going to say execute section 1 through section 7 in sequence, referencing content brief. And I'm typing it like this because I just want it to do all the prompts for section 1 through 7, and I want it to reference the content brief above. So from there, streaming error. No. Let me see. Obviously, we'd want to win founder name. So obviously, we'd want to add in our name, technical skills. Let's see if that was there. You see, so consistently doing the work. Do this one more time. So we have some issues here in Claude right now, which always seems to happen when doing something live. So here, looks like it's giving us that initial analysis, right? And for excitement, growth, major milestones, it's pulling in some dates. And so this is where you'd obviously want to, take into the context of the actual book and your business or whatever you're running this exercise for. And that's where you'd be applying it. But essentially, what we've got and what we've done to this point is created a content brief for this creative agency XYZ. I'm gonna add one more here for founder name. Jack. And then the last bit was execute section 1 through section 7 in sequence referencing content brief. Well, Claude. Okay. Section 1 to Spark. Jack had been a passionate about design. Right here, the early days. Just giving a little story to it. Next 2 years. Chuck, I'd love to hear your take watching and seeing through this, as I think you were the one that recommended the ebook, is how does this line up with that first section of the book, that part 1, for like analysis that someone coming into this as an entrepreneur would need to work through? Simpler, yeah, it was. So just kind of curious your take on it as you're seeing these outputs. But again, the goal of this, right, was to see how do we replace said self. And so now we know that we can get these type of outputs based on a specific sort of workflow that we've created. And so now what I'd want to do is kind of work back through and see what were the things that happened in that initial workflow that got me to this point. So I'm going to scroll up. And I'm simply going to take the series of prompts that I've created. going to add those in now to that point. So step one, so step one is adding that context in the Claude, and then we're going to start moving down that case. So here, moving down one. Expand on these frameworks and contexts. So I'm just going to go ahead and take all the prompts that were from here and then work on those to kind of go backwards from how I would recreate repeatable structure. So ask yourself, are you able to expand on the concepts here? Great question. So take this. So that could create it. Now assume the role, reference. We can go back through there. So your response here from that, Chuck, as far as it's correlating to the book, the AI gets a little ahead of the book by backfilling from its own knowledge, some of the content concepts. Yeah, so I think that, maybe as we're like refining this entire workflow is like figuring out the best flow and context that we need to provide it to just make sure that we're getting the most out of, or keeping it on track throughout that process. So we see here, you assume the role of the prompt engineer, and maybe too much here for doing it all in one shot, but again, trying to see how we might be able to just accelerate this process while keeping things on track. So expand on those. So there was definitely some back and forth that's involved in here. And so once you do everything, want to get the variables input. Okay, that was going to be going to back and forth. Continue mock business facing variables. And then we would get to that mock business version of testing something out. And so let me see. So I'm going to try this here. Just going to format this in such a way that I can test it again and see if we are not closer to getting through this first round of the process. test this out, see how close this gets us. And one step of the way there, not expecting this to entirely replace me tonight, but if this works once here, it should work again for many other different types of frameworks that we can turn into implementable workflows. See, it's starting from that top down. It's interesting. I'm going to retry that once more. It definitely doesn't seem to be as in depth on the variable side here, but it's still assessing and identifying some of the key things being taught within this chapter. But this again would be step one, but maybe that did save us some time. So I'm going to run it one more time on the rerun. What was that question, Chuck? If you could expand a little bit aboard the Claude printout. I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. Let's try this one more time. Oh, I see what you're saying. No, I didn't stop generation before it's finished. It seems that it's cutting itself short a little bit on some of these, and I haven't figured out a way to stop Claude from generating before things are finished, which is sometimes annoying. In some cases, if it's a really long generation, I will just exit out and move to a different thread. I'm going to test one more thing before we put a fork in this one, and I'll come back to it at a later time. We'll look at some additional workflows here throughout. But all in all, I think making progress in terms of like what AI can analyze, but there's still, until, and maybe again, trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, a more complex process. How to kind of systematize how this could look for knowing when and where it makes sense to have a human involved with the process in general, and when and where it makes sense to just have one long string of outputs like we saw at the beginning with the Hormozy based recipe. Going to be testing some other things out here on the background and put a pause on things. Check in with you guys here if you have any thoughts or any questions based on what we have covered so far with tweaking and testing different workflows to work on the the streamlining of these processes based on any given workflow. And if there's anything that you'd like to see on that front, let me see what we got here. Another question. It's also where some chatbot can come into play to handle some of the human work. I agree. And I think something that I'm looking forward to exploring much more is while these types of workflows, whether it's within Claude or ChatGPT, are great, there's a lot of other steps that can happen after the fact. And even when one of these workflows just happens. And one thing I know that is starting to gain some more attention in the space of things called AI agents that will be able to essentially execute whole series of tasks and outcomes based on what you tell it, which at that point, they'll end up replacing a lot of different things that you're doing on a manual side, and we'll be living in the Jetsons world. But there's certainly places where chatbots can start to have those sort of interactions and conversations back and forth with AIs themselves to probably replicate how we are going about building this workflow in the first place. So I'm going to go back through some of our comments here, see what we've got. Go back into a quick analysis or a demonstration or have you of what I was just testing out here on the side because it looks like it is complete. So I've been building in line with how we're working on these types of workflows, an app based on some of our auto scripting code, which I'm more than happy to share with you guys here. That essentially helps with structuring the initial prompts that we give it to just be better from an AI's perspective. And so what I just shared in the chat, and I'll show you, and we can do one last demonstration here and then look at the next bit, is I gave it those commands that I had shared with you just previously for all of the different initial ideas that I wanted to use to kind of build a replicatable framework. And so that's what you see right here as I scroll. What I did was I asked my auto scripting AI assistant to enhance all of the prompts and create a workflow that I can use again. So some examples here, use in marketing strategies, enhance prompt. And so it's kind of, and I said, we're still working on this process too, but this is taking a lot off of really my plate or anyone's plate that is looking for ways to help with creating the different commands around what we've already tested and kind of figured out kind of work and kind of don't. And so once it's given itself these different commands that I give it, it enhances those prompts right here. And now what it's done is it's assembled the auto script code. And it's rewritten it in such a way that I'm going to retest it one more time. And so you can see from the top down here, again, I was just having it run through the chains of the commands together. And it's organized all of the script for me to then go ahead and copy and paste that and test it out again on my own side. And maybe we'll get better results, maybe we won't. But ultimately, we're not going to know unless we try. And so we'll see. But is not liking certain ways that I'm pressing enter. That does not make sense. So not going to work the way that I was hoping it might work. Yes, you viewing the comments, sure. Maybe I do need to be here, or maybe this is where a chatbot needs to be put in place to help with that. So I still needed to prompt it once I gave it. I don't even know if it talks about the AIDA framework inside of there. So again, one demonstration, ways that I'm working to outwork myself so that I don't need to do as much on these, still create workflows that are super impactful. But that said, this still is going to require some additional work and a lot of testing and tweaking that we will dive into as we continue exploring how to do this sort of stuff inside of the community. See that here. Yeah, so we'll keep playing around with that, but what I'm looking for to get out of this specific type of workflow, this is definitely pushing me closer in the right direction. But I think it's safe to say that AI is not going to put me out of a job just yet, but it's not to say it won't sometime in the future. So 2 seconds, check in on my chat over here. And if you guys aren't subscribed to us on YouTube already, go ahead and click subscribe so you will get notified as we create more demos and trainings around generative AI for business growth. Also, if you'd like to join and be a part of our community with Chuck and Julie and several others from our stream here today are already a part of, head on over to genaiuniversity.com. You can subscribe to our newsletter for free. You can also join our AI growth library and the full community for to be in a place with other entrepreneurs and business owners and founders who are exploring new ways to accelerate growth and innovation with artificial intelligence. And Chuck, as you say, the whole premise of the E-Myth is put yourself out of a job. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy to put yourself out of a job. And quite frankly, if I could fire myself in a matter of 30 minutes with a couple of prompts to do my job, then I was probably going to lose my job sometime here very shortly anyways. And so I think ultimately when we're looking at whether it's creating entire systems that help you implement books, whether it's your own book or you're working with a client that has a books or a process that they want to systematize and help them scale. And AI is great for a lot of different things. But as you could see throughout that demonstration, there's definitely work that goes into creating any of these type of workflows. And a lot of it is just playing around and figuring out what's working and what isn't, and finding the right series of prompts that when put together will take a lot of the initial weight off of your shoulders. Now, we did see by the end of that first workflow that if my number one focus was getting part one of the E-Myth kind of figured out and helping me with staying on track and executing part one of it, then I got relatively close, but I wasn't completely all the way there either. Maybe I was 80% of the way in just this workflow creation. Again, I could stop there and move on to a different workflow and test things out and figure out what other areas of my business do I want to try and make a little bit more hands off. But ultimately, all of these different workflows, my guess is they're going to have some sort of nuance depending on the framework that we're following, depending on the structure that any sort of process has baked into it, that maybe there's not a one size fits all approach to this. And that's probably the case. But what we're going to continue exploring with these type of workflows and automations by leveraging the auto scripting process is where can we accelerate certain amounts of time inside of these workflows to save us a ton of time and to take a lot of the heavy lifting of these tasks off of our shoulders. But then again, there's always going to be stuff on our plate. If you're running a business and as an entrepreneur, there's more than enough things out there that can take our attention. And so the question is then, what are we focusing our attention on to get off of our plate? And does it make sense to spend that time to work on that process and to get that workflow streamlined and automated as much as possible, to then save the time and energy and maybe money that it's costing you to execute that? The time put in now could pay itself off in the end, but ultimately that's for you to decide. You see, still 80% of a process is a lot. That leaves you more time to focus on the 20%. That's a great point. Had a client right now that we're working on a custom workflow with, that we were talking about the process and how much of it we've been able to take off of their plate just with, we're about 80% of the way done with the workflow. And that's already translating to what's ultimately going to end up saving anywhere between 100 to 200 hours a year in how they go about creating the particular type of content for their business. And that's a lot of time to anybody, right? But imagine taking 100, it's something that took you 100 hours over the course of a year. Now it takes you 10 hours to accomplish and get the same results in that amount of time. It's up to you to answer that question of, is that going to be worth it to you? But, to me, if I can save 100 hours by putting a little bit of extra time up front into reaping the rewards of that. And again, it's all about the workflow and the process that you're looking to streamline. And so I would focus on what you're spending the most time on now first. Go ahead and see, we got a couple of questions here. And I did see, let me see, make sure I saw something else inside of the chat. Well, this is embarrassing. No, it's not embarrassing. Let me see, atomic habits. Let's see, okay. Well, Julie, Darby, you've been doing this seriously for way longer than I have. Has prompting changed because people have gotten smarter about how to prompt? I think so. I think what we're seeing, especially over the past year as ChatGPT came out, is there's going to be people on both sides. Is that there's people that, don't, I guess on one side that don't even care to learn or understand or figure out how prompting and that whole thing works, and that's fine for them. But the more you test and work and tweak and play with different prompts, and maybe just understand how again, a lot of these large language models will operate under similar approaches with how you structure the prompt. I think the smarter you get with prompting is ultimately just understanding the instructions that you're wanting to give and being really clear and concise in how you are articulating that instruction, and knowing, again, the end of starting with the end in mind of what is the end result of what we want this workflow to look like. How do you work backwards and then fill in the prompts that can help you accomplish each section of anything inside of that given task? A lot of people are becoming a lot better at prompts, but then, again, you also see just in general, this AI isn't giving me the content I want, what's going on? And you look at their prompt and they asked it, they said write a blog post about cats. Okay, well, that's a very weak prompt. Right, compared to a much more elaborate and expansive prompt. But also, as we've kind of demonstrated here with Claude, and again with a lot of different AI tools, is you can use AI to help you with the prompting. And so again, if you know where you want it to go, you can work with AI to help you becoming that, help to be that prompt engineer for you, right? So, but you've got to know that you can interact it like that in the first place. And so, again, you don't know what you don't know in this space, and those type of little it's not even a hack. It's just like understanding how the technology works that can help skip a lot of the step by steps. Here's how to be a prompt engineer, when you could just a matter of asking the right questions to the AI and how to do just that. The second part of your question, or is that more responsive to improvements in AI's availability to the common man and woman? If it's the latter, we see curious humans would never be out of a job. I think like in line with that is curious humans are people that are willing to adapt and implement and integrate these different tools into their lives and stay on top of things and is as ahead of the curve as you can be. We're way ahead. Anyone watching this right now is already way ahead of most people out there that are not even considering like learning or using or applying AI in their day-to-day life, whether you're running a business or whether you are a professional or a student that is looking to build skills that are going to help make you more valuable in the world. You can, and I know Rachel, she's in the comments, she can attest to the huge influx that we've seen on LinkedIn for new jobs and generative AI and people looking for people with a lot of different skill sets in this space. And so much of that is just be willing to learn and adapt and figure out the tools and within any company, because not everyone in every job it's not everyone's job to figure out AI and prompt engineering and that sort of thing and where AI fits into your specific workflow or business. But if you're staying on top of things and are willing to invest the time in yourself, then I think the opportunity is only gonna kind of, show itself. And well said, Chuck, with, believing people that are always people like us to connect the dots and between processes. Yeah, exactly. Like just helping businesses, whether it's your own business or it's your clients' businesses, connect these dots and just figure out these are the few tools that you need. This is like how we can integrate AI into your existing process. The more that you see and learn and know, the easier and faster it's going to be for you to connect those. Connect those dots. And that last comment, I'm glad that stuck out to you. Like, people don't know what they don't know. Therefore don't think to ask AI. I will tell you guys something I find like kind of funny when I'm talking with people and have been since just playing around with Jasper and like all the different jobs and things that are popping up here, heads of AI. There's so much opportunity out there, and you see people asking, and I guess just because we've trained so many people from early Jasper days to just still what we're doing at Gen AI University. You see like a question come up. I want AI to do this, and I need to do this with AI. And can ChatGPT help me do this? And because I do X, Y, or Z. And like they'll almost say the prompt verbatim as to like what I could type in and have like literally type in what someone says they want like AI to do. And then it does just that. It gives them the content, or it gives them the thing that they need. But it was right there in front of them the whole time. And again, it's just knowing the resources and what these resources are capable of doing, if you know how to use them and connect the dots, is going to just open up more opportunity for you as you're looking to, whether it's replace and fire yourself because you figured out a workflow that will save you 80% of the time you're doing at a particular thing in your business. Does that mean you're going to go retire, sip mimosas on a beach and, never work again? Well, maybe for some people, but for probably the majority of us, if we work ourselves out of one job, there's probably plenty of other things that you can be spending your time on and using to implement, or using AI to help you with implementation and acceleration of specific workflows. And so, again, however this fits into your business is, where it makes most sense, most likely to spend most of your time on. Any ideas or I'd love to hear if anyone here is stuck on a particular type of workflow that like, or something that you do in your business on a regular basis that you're trying to automate and outwork yourself, or you're trying to get AI to help you with the workload of it. I'm just curious where you guys are working on right now. Chuck, Julie, um, anyone else here? And if you're watching the replay in the comments, let me know. Let's see if we go up here. Got an idea for a way that if you have a visualized workflow of how you can use AI to help with taking your visual ideas of a workflow and turning those into reality. Let me find a visual. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna do that. I saw someone suggest StoryBrand, and I went through the entire StoryBrand course at one point and spent a lot of time digging through that. Super powerful framework. And so let me see. We got a question here. Julie or statement using AI to write engaging descriptions for quilt fabric and patterns. I haven't quite worked myself out of a job. It's brain numbing to fun. Okay. Julie, if you're open to sharing a little bit more about that job in general and like what's like a desire, like what's a good output look like for you? Maybe even link to one of your quilt fabrics and patterns description links. We could check that out. Let's see. And or for that, Julie, let's see the quilting descriptions, and we can make see if we can't make a workflow to work you at, or maybe work you into a more fun job. Let's see, okay. Right. Let's see. Since I depend on free search engine traffic, I won't even consider using the descriptions from my affiliate partners. It took a while to get the prompts figured out. Now I generate the prompts. Okay. See, Brent. Daily workflow consists of just trying to stay on top of everything happening since they're moving incredibly fast. Reaching out and pitching potential clients is also a drag. Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of stuff happening on the space. It's hard to keep up with all of it. Yeah, maybe there's something there, Brent, for maybe like consolidating how you're getting this information and like taking like different newsletters or different like news like that you're getting the information from and just feeding that into ChatGPT for or Claude for like a condensed rundown of like what happened today in a nutshell. It'd be an interesting work. reaching out and pitching potential clients. So Brent, if you're open to it, is sharing a little bit about what that process looks like for you. Are you like researching a client? Are you crafting an email to said client? Is it just a matter of like writing or sending out the messages yourself? A more context might be useful, but it sounds like something certainly AI could assist with. So yeah, Julie, you're generating your own prompts and from Excel spreadsheets and pasting the whole thing. 200 characters, and I don't work well together. Oh yeah, the character limits on these can be kind of a pain. I have found that Claude tends to be a little bit better with the conciseness of writing maybe 200 character descriptions. In some cases, sometimes I find ChatGPT can be a little more long-winded in some cases, but Claude might be helpful for that. Is it possible a prompt that feeds off its response, like giving AI my audience, topic, and promise, with that coming up with the problems and pain points that become hooks, headlines, and content? Yes, bearded advertising. I do believe so. So in this case, the question is a prompt that feeds off of its response. So you're giving an AI an audience, topic, and promise. With that, come up with a problem, pain point that becomes headlines and hooks. Yeah, let me see if we can't work off of something like that real quick. So I'm going to open up Claude, and we could probably be using ChatGPT for this as well. Just bounce back and forth and see. Saying, is it possible? Prompt that feeds off of its response. So I'm not going to say here. I'm creating a prompt that feeds off of its own response. I need to give AI my audience, my topic, and my promise. And then with that, I want the AI to help come up with the problems and pain points that I could then use to become hooks and headlines and additional pieces of content. Can you help me with this? Okay, so here's an example: pain points, struggles, potential hooks or headlines. So now what I went on to say, okay, thank you. Now can you act like a prompt engineer and reference the above to templatize it in such a way that I can use it as a repeatable framework where I put in my own variables and then I have structured prompts to come up with each of the different sections from the variables. So here we see the audience, who is your target audience, pain points, struggling with problem, lacking this. And so it's taking that framework that we did, hook template, problem, here is this, how to achieve blank, right? And so this is where bearded advertising, or anybody, especially if you're a marketing agency or someone that has like a copywriter and you have a lot of frameworks, like this is AI giving us like a framework that we can use and replicate and build. If you already have hooks and headlines that you know are awesome frameworks and structures, this is where you can start feeding it more of those and what you already know to work, that you just want it to replicate it again and again. So we kind of started from scratch and built out a solid example, but this is where I would want to then spend and focus in a little bit more time so that I could then take this right here. But now we'll watch this. So I would say, copy this real quick. Let's just say we wanted to make this a super simple workflow. Could open up a different Claude chat. I'll test this in ChatGPT too. So let me give an example here. Who is your target audience? What's the main topic? Target audience, let's say like small, let's just say like local electricians. Topic, new business development, promise, generate more local leads through SEO. Let's say you're an SEO agency, you're serving local electricians, or yeah, just electricians, local to more leads through SEO and digital marketing. And yeah, just digital marketing. So all you would need to do is fill out the context right here, and then you could generate this. And this is just one section of the workflow, but because we're giving it that context, we've given it our initial, audience, topic, and promise. And then we're generating hooks, headlines, and then problems based on that. So, quick demo, but you said like we basically gave it like what we wanted to create. I'm creating a prompt that does this, right? So like I need to give it this, and then I want AI to help me come up with the problems and pain points. It gave me that structure of things right here. And so from this point, I would work on the fine tuning of said prompts and how I wanted to expand on any of these different sections down here, would be where I would spend and put a little bit more attention on. So hopefully that is a helpful demonstration. But if that process for doing this takes you X amount of time, and now we can get it down to a matter of seconds, then you save some time right there in a process that you might be doing very consistently. Pop up. See context. Okay, so this was daily workflow consists of staying on top of everything, reaching out, and pitching potential clients. It's a drag. So for some more context for Brent, we have context to write a daily newsletter and use ChatGPT to speed up the process. The goal of the newsletter, just authority. However, I could automate a lot, but would not be as up to date. Okay. Yeah, I guess for this, it's a matter of how much you want to be up to date on the automation side of things and otherwise, and which makes the most sense to take yourself out of, versus maybe what you mentioned beforehand with the newsletter was like the reaching out and pitching. Is it writing emails? Is it writing follow-up emails and that sort of thing? Maybe there's a workflow for writing the outreach contents that is more personalized that could land more clients if that's going to equal more, revenues and things of that nature in your bucket. I got you, Julie, on the 200 character limit. Let me see. Internet, yes, thank you. A quick reminder, if you're not a member of our community, go ahead and check us out at genaiuniversity.com. Become a member today. We've got a bunch of pre-built prompts and workflows in our growth library to help you with speeding up your content creation and business growth. Yeah, I saw the presentation today at the AI Summit events. Yeah, glad you guys enjoyed that content multiplier prompt in Claude. That's a fun one. I'm happy to share that with you guys here if anyone is interested and wants it. Check in. Content multiplier. This didn't necessarily work me out of any job, but it certainly helped speed things up on a lot of different fronts. Let's see. I think this would be a handy one for anybody that is out there doing content, filming content, creating content, interviews, things of that nature. Then, let me see. I think this is the domain. I just want to make sure I give you guys the right domain. There you go. So for those of you here that haven't got that workflow, I'll go ahead and give it out for free for you guys here with us live. And if you catch it in the comments, then do that. But you just want to go over to genaiuniversity.com/free-content-multiplier-recipe. You'll just be prompted if you're not already a member of the community. You just need to make a really quick free account to access it inside of our Circle community. And this is a super powerful workflow that we developed inside of our mastermind to help with delivering more content analysis, insights, action items, executive notes, things of that nature. And so I'll show you guys how you can run it, because I know a lot of you have content that you're creating, and could probably be putting that content to work for you more than it is if you had the contents being published and out there. But that takes a lot of time, and it could be a full-time job if you wanted it to be, especially if you are a solopreneur type like myself, who likes to find ways to use AI to make my life easier. Give an example of how to use this recipe. 3 things. You need 1, a transcript. 2, you need to identify your avatar and your niche. 3, you need to be able to have the ability to copy and paste said prompts. Could just be 1 prompt if you want, but all of these do build off of each other for a pretty robust prompt stack. So I'm going to copy the prompts over into a new Claude thread to demonstrate how simple this workflow is, but how effective it can be. I'm going to paste those here. I'm going to I'll just show an example. We did a workshop this past week. Many of you were on it that are watching this right now, on $100 million AI business. The $100 million AI business growth workflow workshop. which we broke down a really robust marketing strategy and execution workflow. And I'm going to attach that as well because I have the transcript for that on hand. I was going to use that for a demo earlier, but ended up not. I'm adding that transcript here into my Claude. I've added the workflow that I copied and pasted. And now that I've got my avatar niche, I'm simply going to click enter. And no, get this streaming error quite a bit up here today. So I'm going to do it one more time. Context equals transcript attached. Okay. I'm going to attach the transcript. And then I'm going to go back in and copy and paste my prompt. And sometimes AI is just going to AI, and it is what it is. Fingers crossed it works this time. And I think we're off to the races. So now we're starting with an executive summary of blog post about the key insights and takeaways. So you can see here, last week, generated a 2-hour workshop leveraging AI to unlock business growth. Just pulling out context from the workshop, key takeaways. It's got a conclusion. Writing a lot of insights and action items. So from here, I know what's going on. I'm going to do this one more time. Chat not found. Start a new chat. I wasn't in my pro account. So one last time. Context equals transcript. I'll attach that and then run it again. See, if you guys are using Claude for free, you will run into a certain amount of times that you can use Claude in an hour or in a few hours, similarly to how you run into usage issues inside of ChatGPT. If you have the pro account, I think it's unlimited. Now, sometimes it takes a few retries to get it to execute this entire recipe at once. But in general, once executed well, it gives me all of the content that I could need for easily a week's worth of promotion and pushing stuff out. I'm going to retry it again. Again, sometimes, like I said, AI is going to AI, and as well defined as one of these workflows can be with our prompts and instructions, sometimes the more elaborate they get and extensive, sometimes it doesn't always start exactly down that right track. So we'll see if it starts with this. It's giving me the summary, the key insights from the transcript. So if this happens, I'm just going to click continue, and then ideally, it's going to keep moving down this process. So you guys that don't have this recipe, go on over to geniauniversity.com/free-content-multiplier-workflow, and you can get it inside of the community. And I think this and the summit is going to be the only places that you find that link through. So consider yourself that you just got lucky finding an Easter egg. If it's going to provide it, but maybe Claude's not feeling it for this time. Got all worked up after the last one. I'm gonna copy this once more. One thing I do like about Claude is prompt one. So Claude was doing this actually during the workshop. It was being a little bit picky about the context that it was actually going to be applying. And I don't feel like messing with it a lot right now. So there's a demonstration of how this entire workflow works when you opt in and check it out. And usually it works. But again, like I said, sometimes AI is just going to AI, and there's nothing I can do about it other than keep tweaking and refining and playing around to the point where we get it working the way we want to. That said, check back in with you guys here with us live. And if there are any questions that are burning at the top of your head, or just in general about workflows and creating these prompts and other things, we are going to be doing another workshop at the this Thursday from 3 to 5 Central on the 19th inside of our community. There are solo tickets available for that workshop, but you guys are more than welcome to subscribe to the Growth Library, where we'll get access to those workshops and the recordings as well for on-demand access, where we'll just be going a little bit more in depth on certain areas of the auto scripting process, and we've got a whole series of stuff built out with it. So that's happening on Thursday. Question or statement here. Notice even in the paid version of Claude, if I push it hard, it starts to get short outputs towards the end, like it runs out of juice. Maybe the server's throttle output. I've noticed some interesting, some interesting uses when kind of like as we've been using Claude more and more, and as it's becoming more of a known and popular tool, that I've heard similar things, Chuck. And, I think as it is with AI and how fast everything changes is, one day ChatGPT or Claude could be operating totally differently than it was the other day, or the outputs and the quality might be, variant as to how they're working and how we'd like them to work. And it might just take some tweaking of prompts and workflows to stay on top of it. And so, that's where the adaptability comes into place from how we approach AI is, again, if things are going to change, which they most certainly are, that's why we've got a community of folks that are helping each other stay up to date and informed with how all that works. And I wanted to demonstrate one more thing. And again, if you guys have questions, now is the time to drop it. I see Bearded Advertising. Feel like I'm not using Jasper anymore. Thinking about canceling, but there's a new CEO and announcement tomorrow. I think Jasper is definitely gearing more towards larger enterprise and upmarket type of marketing teams, and a lot of their product is being developed with that type of market segment in mind. And so they're building for a certain type of business. And I've gotten some idea about what a few things are going to be covered on the announcement. They do have a new CEO. There's some really exciting things coming at Jasper and like what they're developing, especially for like larger teams and companies with the need for a lot of people to be working through these marketing projects. And so again, depending on your business and your use case, there's certain things that Jasper is going to be great for. And then there's a lot of cases where Jasper maybe is not necessary if you have a workflow that ChatGPT and or Claude can help you accomplish. And so, it really just depends on your business. And definitely check out if you are a Jasper user, at least the cliff notes about what the announcement's going to be, because some pretty cool stuff that they've been working on and developing. And with the new CEO coming on board, that's definitely gonna, got some big things on their mind as we go. We see good point here, Chuck, with Claude. With the large documents loaded, each prompt runs the entire session, so the tokens are snowballing in size. Yeah, that is a good point, and it's easy to run up the token usage inside of Claude if you're processing tons of content, because it does reference that. I've seen Anthropic talking about how they're gonna, maybe like put some guardrails on that, or maybe I don't know all the details, but again, as with great power comes great responsibility, and probably be easy to, overly use some of Claude's features, and depending on how they're going to charge for credits and usage, then something to keep in mind on that front. One thing I'm going to get to, make sure I get to before I say it and I forget, and then I leave everyone here hanging, is as many of you might have seen, ChatGPT recently came out with the DALL-E 3 integration, which I'm not going to get into probably right now just because I haven't. But Vision, which is its ability to analyze and assess an image. So hope you found that useful tonight, and at least somewhat entertaining, watching me type a bunch of keys into a AI chatbot and walk you guys through how I approach workflow automation with these tools. Appreciate you guys all being here with us live tonight, and the engagement with you guys is what I was hoping for in tuning in. Don't want to be on here just talking to myself for 3 hours, so I appreciate you guys joining me for this live, and for those of you catching the recording, again, we'd love to hear what you kind of thought in the comments, ideas for additional workflows that we could create, and have a lot of fun. So thank you guys. Bearded Advertising, thank you. Chuck, thank you. Appreciate your time being here with us. Jackie, thank you for being here as well. Julie, thank you. Appreciate that. Webinars are the best. I do appreciate you thinking that, and I would do my best to bring value to you guys here and what I'm doing. And obviously don't know everything in this world of AI, who can, but try to help those of us here in the community get the most out of these tools. That's great. Kevin, thank you so much for being here. And for everyone who is not subscribed, at least to our YouTube channel, make sure you go ahead and click subscribe and a notification button if you can, so that you know when we drop new trainings, new demos, and things of that nature. And then head on over to genaiuniversity.com, where you can get on a newsletter for free. You can also join the community and get access to the AI Growth Library for a low monthly price. You get access to certainly some of these workflows that we created here tonight, once I put the finishing touches on them, and then so many more that we continue to come out with, as well as ongoing trainings in AI workflow creation and development of AI skills and tools that you can use to plug and play, train your team, train yourself on leveraging AI for growth. And we've got a few different levels for membership. So go ahead, genaiuniversity.com, check it out, see what we have to offer. And just recently, as of this week, I added in my own AI chatbot clone of me to interact with folks on our website, on our main page, so that you can ask questions about AI and content creation. And the cloned AI Darby is going to be there to help answer some of your questions and give you some prompts and some structure for how to go about creating these prompts or whatever you're looking to create. So head on over, check that out. And of course, again, make sure you subscribe to us to stay up to date with all of our new updates and trainings. And until next time, guys, keep calm and AI on, and we'll see you on the other side. All right. Take care, everybody. Good night.